I'm joined today by Nathan Corden. Just thought we'd have a little bit of a chat and go over the Derby to date. Nathan, as always, Greyhound Derby, there's always going to be debate and argument. And I mean, you've obviously seen it now at different tracks. What do you make of this so far?
I think at the moment, you look at the whole Derby as an event, and you would have to say that Ballinabillored is still the one to beat. He's been very impressive in all the heats, and you are right. So this is my fourth Derby, and I don't think there's ever been a Derby, certainly these four, without issues, problems, comments, queries. I think it sparks huge debates, and I think sometimes you have to be very subjective about it and look at probably the facts. I know you've been looking at sort of the times and everything like that, and I think some of it will make very interesting reading.
I think the plan is that I will distribute this video probably after I put the times out there, but I think what the times will show, obviously using marked sectionals, we're using marked sectionals to halfway and second half, but also the actual times. And the fuss that's being made, in my view, the fuss that's being made is totally disproportionate to what's gone on. I mean, We're looking at front runners. Yes, there isn't any doubt that the track has run slower on the last couple of meetings. But the one thing that occurs to me, thinking back to Wimbledon, everybody now, Wimbledon has got better and better since it closed. It was the most amazing Derby track ever now. Which in my opinion it never was. I think it had its own charm, it had its own style. But surely people can remember that when the occasions, the summer evenings, where the track would start 40 fast for the early heats of competitions, or for the Derby in particular, when it was at its peak. And by halfway through the meeting, you'd be back to normal. And in some cases, they'd then put the sledge around and speed it up again, or put some more water down, and that would make the difference. We're arguing here about the worst that Towcester has been is a calculated 20 slow, and I don't think that's far out. You might argue for some dogs more than others, but the fuss that's being made, it just seemed entirely disproportionate to me.
I think you're spot on, like with the Wimbledon comment as well. I mean, I always remember Wimbledon, you never want to trap one, you can't win out of trap one there. I think the first couple of years at Nottingham, we had, you can't win out of trap 6. Then we had at Towcester the first year, you can't win out of trap 6. Thorn Falcon won the Derby out of 6. It can be difficult. I know it's the main race of the year, and there's more highlight on it, but sometimes, I look at it a little bit like football as well. You're in the stands watching a football match, and, not everyone's going to agree with the manager, what team selection it is. People will not agree with how the track runs, what the assessment of the going is, whether you can run from trap 3, 1, 6, wherever it may be. And we all know this is a game of opinions. It would just be nice to actually debate it in a good manner, and it's not always nice to see all the torrents of abuse that are on Twitter, sort of directed at Kevin, to be honest with you.
No, I'm thoroughly up for a debate, thoroughly up for a discussion, and we're having one now, and it's about differences of opinion. I think the other point, we talk about trap 6, and again, something that doesn't get brought up. Oh, you can't win out of trap 6 at Towcester. Well, the reality is, how many genuine trap 6 dogs do we have now? How many genuine wide runners? I mean, probably two of the greatest Derby winners I've ever seen were genuine wide runners, and one of them would be Ballinabillored, and the other one would have, and Some Picture, that he was the other one, and he would run around his field, and I saw him on many occasions where he would simply perhaps even arrive at the bend in 3rd or 4th place, and he would just take an outside course, just run right around the outside of the entire field. I don't see many of those dogs. I mean, even dogs like Fawn Rebel, I'm not even convinced is a wide runner of the type that I sort of grew up with. Quite why that is, I don't know, but we see it in graded races. We've got tracks now saying that they are worried about putting on, perhaps even putting on 5-dog races because they've got no wide runners at the track, or they've got probably 5% of the runners, particularly in the top grades, that are genuine wide runners. So clearly, if you're going to run from trap 6, and it's the only trap that is down in numbers, I think 1 to 5, you couldn't kind of manipulated it any better. Which of course you can in graded racing, but in the Derby you can't. So you get what you get. But surely, if you don't have genuine wide runners, then trap 6 has to be the worst trap, because even if you're a middle seed, you don't want trap 6. And the more and more the dogs are out of position, then trap 6 is going to be the worst draw. And if you're low on numbers anyway, it doesn't prove anything for me. It doesn't prove that there's a disparity against trap 6. It just proves that there aren't many wide runners running from their right box, which of course the dog in trap 3 may have. He may have his perfect box, or the dog in trap 1.
I mean, you are bang on there, even across graded races and all of competitions, that there is a lack of wide runners these days. Even doing the sales, we know now that, people are wanting the dogs more on the inside. As if we have more wide runners, people are interested in them a little bit more because they need to get them onto their graded strength. But, going back to the likes of Sun Picture and the others there, there were more wide runners going back 10 years ago or even longer. I think the Derby over the last few years, we've had less wides entered. Now, I'm sure one argument will be that people are tactically seeding. But again, I think over the first couple of rounds, we've only sort of changed a couple of the seedings, and they were all requested rather than us saying to them, I think you need to, other than one of them, we moved from rails to middle. But yeah, it is difficult to get that quality of wide runner these days.
Yeah, I mean, quite why that's happened, we've got no idea. Personally, I think it's related to the breeding, and I think it's to do with a lot more to do with particularly the influx of the Australian dogs, and to a certain extent the American dogs, which of course they all would have become champions, or their sires and the bloodlines would become champions on the inside hair. Maybe that has something to do with it. Beyond that, I can't think of a logical explanation. We haven't changed the tracks. Some Picture was a superstar around Nottingham on a track where apparently trap 6s can't run well. Again, looking at the numbers, I think Rab was very unlucky with what was his King Sheeran. Went out the semi-finals, didn't he?
Yeah.
A dog who'd had a serious injury early in his career could easily have made a Derby final, and people would have said, well, there's not a problem with trap 6. The other point I was going to raise you, I mean, I've seen Derbys now at 4 tracks, and you always remind me how old I am.
I've only seen 3, yeah.
But the thing about it is that they are all what they are. They are real specialist tracks, and that will suit some dogs more than others, and each of them are different. So if you had White City as an example, I don't ever recall seeing a Derby winner that didn't lead by the 3rd bend. In fact, in most occasions, they led at the 1st bend, even though it was 500 meters. Even a dog like I'm Slippy, who was predominantly a sprinter, could hold on, because given by the time they came around the bends, the running was so short and that suited a particular kind of dog. You got to Wimbledon, and you look at Westmead Hawk, absolutely relishing that run off the last bend, that long running, particularly obviously on the original side. Fabulous long running from the last bend to the winning line. That again suited some dogs more than others. I mean, Nottingham again. I would suggest you had a certain type.
Yeah. I mean, I think Nottingham as a track, probably it favoured more the Irish runners, because they're aiming to win the Shelbourne Derby, and it's probably most similar to Shelbourne, Nottingham is, than any of the others. But again, with Toaster, people are saying that you can't come from behind. How many dogs have you seen come off the last bend and get up on the line? It happens, and it happens regularly. I just don't understand people saying that you have to lead and you lead all the way. You know, you get many dogs come from behind.
I heard a comment the other day, and there's a very nice guy, is someone I get on very well with, but he described the results as too random. And I thought, well, what's random? Tell me, is it because they're getting skittled over at the first bend? Does that make it random? I mean, you're looking at the times, you're looking at surely a dog like Ballinbola Ed, and obviously we're still 2 or 3 runs to go, but he is a great greyhound. He's a fabulous greyhound. Sing Along Sally's another fabulous greyhound. We've got the British breds as well in there of Kevin's. They are all fabulous dogs in their own right. How can you be disparaging about the track? Are you being disparaging about those dogs because they are just quality animals, surely?
Yeah, and you spot on. And I think the thing as well, certainly with open races, it's a luck of a draw as well. So, you know, when you mentioned earlier about the trap numbers, you know, maybe some of the better dogs have been drawn in trap 3. Some of the better dogs have been drawn in trap 2. I mean, take Ballymac Fair one, for instance, the other day. People say, you don't want the red box. You can't win from there. He ran brilliantly. And he ran brilliantly from 1 last year. You know, it does sometimes get tiresome. But, you know, like we said at the opening, you know, happy to debate things just in a very civil way. You know, you don't have to agree with everybody. People don't have to agree with you or me or anybody else, but, you know, just put it over in a normal, polite way.
I think so. And again, just another subject. You know, people were talking about the condition of the track and you know the water on the top of the track. Well, that was Wimbledon. John Forster at Wimbledon, who was generally acknowledged to be the best trackman out there. The track glistened. There was water on the surface. And we keep going. And again, I get sick of hearing about how fabulous Australia is. No, Australia has a lot right. But in the words of Nick Sava, when it comes to describing the Australian surfaces, they're like the fucking road. Doesn't suit our dogs. It wouldn't suit our dogs. Some of the tracks in Australia, they barely make an imprint. Again, it's a difference of opinion. Nick, who I think most people would respect, didn't like the Australian surfaces.
With Australia, I've been to a few Australian tracks and know people over there. You know, I think I agree with you. The tracks are very fast over there, and they, again, a little bit like the Irish, they do breed for speed, so they want that early pace and bang and gone. Going back to Australia, their box draws as well. You know, you could have a Bang Railer drawn in trap 8, which is, you know, is a disaster completely. Or even if they have any wide runners over there in trap 2, which could then take out the other 6 to the right of him. So, you know, Australia has some very good things. Ireland has some very good things, but so does the UK. You know, in an ideal world, you'd want a combination of everything, and you know, you'd be in utopia.